Hey everyone, Brandflakes here, back with the third round of teasers for Skybound Dragons, otherwise known as Set 4 for Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. Getting right into the video, we have Nahon, a gold Abyss minion. This was actually dropped last night very late, but I already made the other video, so technically this is from the second round of teasers. But basically, he is a 6 mana 2/4 follower. Fanfare, evolve all unevolved allied followers on the field and deal 2 damage to your leader, and he comes with Drain. It is very important to note that his wording means that he also evolves himself. So he's not only direct power creep of Reyna, but he also does a lot. He also heals his own detriment because he rushes and he has Drain. So taking some advice from last video, just in case you guys don't know what the cards are, I'll have the screen here and I'll try to remember to pop it on and off as we go along. But if you don't know, Abyss does have a good amount of zero cost followers, mainly in the form of Skeleton. There are only two forms of generating Skeleton right now, and that is through Mino's Death Rattle, which is the 2 mana card that gains Rush and Bane if you enhance her to 4. And also we have Ghostly Soiree, whatever it's called, at 2 mana as well for Skeleton. So the most generic way that most people have theorized that Nahon is going to be like a turn 6 power spike is by playing, or saving rather, your skeletons from these two cards and then playing them along with Nahon. So that way you can power up your Skybound Arts generation a little faster with these cards. Now, obviously, there are also other cards that are really cheap. For example, we have Bats, which are the 1 mana drain tokens, and we also have Ghosts, which are the 1 mana Storm banish tokens. So there are other ways to play Nahon later on in the game that don't require you to hold your skeletons for the entire game. But for the most part, he is going to be essentially a power creep Reyna. I almost tried to put Reyna up here. Reyna is going to be a pretty much instantly forgotten neutral card at gold. She required an Evo in order to evolve all the other allied followers on the field, but she came with better base stats. So we can see why that Nahon is once again just very strict power creep. From last set, we had Congregate Entwining power creeping the Portcraft follower, and now this set we have Nahon power creeping Reyna, which is really funny. So somehow all of Abyss's new gold rarity minions are just like power creeping existing minions just for fun. But moving on, we have Galleon, or as I might call her multiple times in the video, Galone, because that's how I see her. It's like they never plush or something. But it's going to be the Earth dragon from Grand Blue Fantasy. She is a 3 mana 5/5 legendary Havencraft follower that comes with ward, and she cannot attack. And at the end of your turn, if you've unlocked Super Evolution, so turn 6 or 7, depending if you're going second or first, you randomly evolve one unevolved allied follower on the field that did not attack this turn. So this means that this can come with minions that have Summoning Sickness, so you don't even necessarily have to like not attack with all of your minions. It just has to be a minion that you summon that turn. So if you play this with something like Aether, Aether does pull Galleon. So if you play Aether, pull Galleon, Super Evo Galleon, one of the other minions, or rather Super Evo Aether and attack with Aether, proc Grimnir Crest, all that, one of the other minions you summoned with Aether will get the Evo. And to be fair, there aren't many good Havencraft followers that come that are low mana that would actually be relevant at all, in my opinion. So just as like a quick like just summary, like most of the followers for Havencraft at this mana point, they don't come with like, oh, once I'm evoed, I do more effects. These are all cards that are very vanilla or have a fanfare effect, so it's a little better. We'll have to see what the neutral cards will be looking like, but obviously for neutral, the only card that would be supremely buffed by this sort of gameplay would be I think it'd only be, I can't pronounce their names. This guy, Hinikar and Jafnar, because I do believe that Aether summons Aether should summon everything that is 3 mana and below. So she isn't limited to just wards, it's any follower that's 3 or less. So the only follower that has actual value from 3 or less is going to be that one set to neutral that no one cares about, which I think people call Hank and Jeff just because it's, or I've seen someone call him Hank and Jeff because it's an easier way to refer to them. So this is the only card that really has like really broken value, with Gallon being pulled from Aether, but you don't even want to play this card in Ward Haven anyways. So the effect of Galleon will probably mostly be relevant just because it's extra stats that don't exist before, and obviously helps generate more Skybound arts for any of the cards you have in your hand that need it. This is the Womdus trailer. If you want to look at it, it's probably on YouTube somewhere. But obviously, Womdus was the first revealed dragon, so I believe Womdus will probably be next on the teaser list. Next Skybound Dragon, or next dragon rather, is going to be the Wind Dragon, AUR, Wind personified. She is going to be a 2-mana 2/1 legendary follower, and her fanfare will be if you have Skybound art activated, you recover 1 evolution point. Now, this is kind of low-key really strong for Forest, but it does require you to build an actual deck around her. If you don't know, Forest has a lot of bounce effects in their library. So if we go to Forest, we'll see that Forest has we have stuff like where we are. We have Bug Alert. Bug Alert's the easiest cheap version. So this is 1 bounce. We have Carbuncle, which is a more notorious bounce. So another set of 3. And then we also have Godwood Staff, which is again pretty commonly played for Roach Carbuncles. So we have 12 potential Evo points that Forest can regenerate if they play all these cards and only bounce AOR. And to be fair, I'm not going to pretend that's broken or anything, but that's just a funny thing that you can do with this cat. And the main thing I think the cat provides is that if you're playing something like Roach, the only downside of Roach is that sometimes you have to evo too aggressively to clear wider boards. And AOR doesn't really solve that super cleanly because what happens when you play a lot of Glades is that you have too many cards to begin with, and AOR is a 2-mana card, which means that she is slightly more expensive than usual. And so she doesn't really do much for Roach, but there are potentials that now Roach or Force rather can play very frivolously with their evolve points because you can have AOR to redeem those bound or those evo points. So even if you only have just 3 AORs, that is 3 extra evolve points that you have. And unlike Sword, where Sword does have a pretty equivalent method of getting the evolve points. Like you play 5 mana and you return 2 of that mana back to you. So for Sword, it's a 3 mana regen 1 evo point, and AOR is technically a good amount slower because you do require to get Skybound art. But the idea is that because you're going to be evolving aggressively anyways, you are mitigating that downside because you'll get the Skybound art faster than you normally would by evoing every turn and then having AOR give you that evo back pretty quickly. So far, I don't think she, like, for example, we looked at Kupitan earlier, Kupitan from the first reveals, which I wouldn't scroll to, but it's probably really far up. And Kupitan obviously requires an Evo in order to get the board clear effect. So Ewar is obviously here to be like a Kupitan, like, to make her feel a little less bad. But I don't think that it's good enough yet for Kupitan. But the fact that we're getting Evo point regeneration for Forest does lend towards the idea that Kupitan will become better as more support gets printed as the teasers continue. And then next we have the new Dragon Bronze follower, Mari, Meg's close friend, a 2-mana 2/2 with the effect activates in hand whenever a 3 base cost allied follower super evolves. Reduce the copy of this card to 0 until the end of your turn. And at the end of your turn, you give a random allied super evolved follower on the field +1/+1. So we'll talk about this before we scroll up. This card is pretty bad in my opinion. This is really weird because for every other like couple card they've made or like set card, they've just been combined. But for some reason, Meg and Mary are separated, and Mary suffers a lot for that. She is essentially a vanilla 2/2, and she doesn't do anything until you're at the Super Evo stage. And so a vanilla 2-mana 2/2 that technically becomes a 0 cost if you Super Evo something like a little Seabro, which is the 3-mana 1/1 Marine follower. And obviously you have Meg, who is going to be the more common Super Evo target. I think she's like right up here. So she shouldn't be too far to. I guess she is a little farther up. Oh, she's on the first set as well, right? Yeah. So Meg isn't even that great for this effect because Meg requires Skybound onto Super Evo, and then it's not really that crazy. Like this is another miss in my opinion for Dragon, and unless we see a card for Dragon that's like, oh, when you play a minion, cycle that minion. Like unless we see a card with that specific effect, Mary is like really bad because once again she does nothing unless you're Super Evoing, and the Super Evo target has to be a very specific Super Evo target. And then even with all that, like the bonus you get for that isn't even good. I think the best way to really show how bad Mari is compared to like anything else is that Dragon already has a really good 2-mana 2/2 card that gives you a really strong effect if you have a Super Evo minion on the board, and that's Intent Dragonute Princess. And I don't think anyone has ever seen this card played outside of Take Two, which is it's in Take Two, but like this card's effect is just objectively more impactful in my opinion than Mary because drawing 2 is really powerful for 2 mana and the body, and Mary comparison is just like, oh, I cost 0 for a minion that will only buff when you end your turn. So yeah, I think this is probably the worst card they revealed so far in the set, which is ironic because it's on Dragon. And the last card they have revealed, which is another dragon card, which I think is notably better than Mary is going to be Izmir Frozen Fate. She is a 5 mana 5/4 silver follower, and fanfare. If you have 10 max play points, you evolve the follower. Then when you evolve this follower, you deal 3 to all enemy followers. So this is a card that is probably again a bit on the mediocre side, and is only decent because of how dragon works. Now the main issue is that you have to hit all of your max play points to really get the value out of Izmir. So I had the feeling that she will really only be good in Fenny decks. And Fenny decks I think Fenny decks don't mind having Izmir because her fanfare effect, like if you're coping and you need to stall out for Fenny, Izmir is honestly quite decent as a Galmu replacement. And if you don't know, Galmu is not really great in Fenny decks because what Galmu ends up doing is that she ends up being a rather poor card because of her enhance. And if you don't know, Fenny does not reduce enhance effects. So what happens is that if you play Galmu, instead of being a 3 mana down to a 2 mana cost with single or double Fenny, she becomes a 7 mana storm, which isn't really that powerful. And obviously, Galmu in the context of Fenny would be mostly played for that AoE effect, like to get the Fangs of Art Destruction and then maybe combine with Phylene. And if we're going even further into the idea that this is probably more of a generic ramp card deck, this is definitely very good with Phylene as well, because with this card, you can have it's obviously not that great because you're playing 2 cards of a combo, and there's probably overkill already, but you can play this, like you can ignore Galmu, again, you're just playing generic ramp. You can play Izmir into Phylene, and then at 10 mana, obviously you have Overflow, so Phylene will generate her White Frost Whisper, which will execute the cards on the board. So against stuff like a low rolling spell boost rune, against stuff like maybe Aragavi, or not Aragavi, but Gilnelis. Who is it? It's the sorry, this is the Abyss legendary card that Gensetsu and Yuzuki. Like if against Gensetsu Yuzuki, this combo can be very okay because what happens is that against Gensetsu Yuzuki, the Phylene, like the generic AoE spell won't clear Gensetsu Yuzuki herself, but then you can use the Phylene spell to clear it without having to Evo. And then obviously there are other spells that like present really large minions that you could not clear without spending an Evo or having an execute. So there is a good amount of value. If you don't know what Phylene is, let me just show Phylene off really quickly as well. Like there is some value when it comes down to this card just being played generically, but I would not blame anyone for thinking that this is a very mediocre dragon card. It's just that like there are use cases for her, and her use cases are very okay. Like if you get her down to discount with Phylene, she's at 3 damage, deal 3 AoE, and she also evolves. So at 10 max play points, you get 3 damage AoE and an 8/7 rush. So she is definitely very okay in the same way that Bones is very okay. The question is that if you get the high roll of all these ramp cards and tempo cards and all this, is it actually better than just having a clear win condition that many other decks will be getting this set? So we'll see. Dragon is definitely in a really odd place because they're not getting anything cool, but the cards aren't like terrible. They're just like bad in a way because they don't give a clear win condition. So we'll see if the second dragon card saves them, if the second legendary saves them, or if the second gold card also saves them. So there is still some space for side games to cook with dragon, but it's pretty limited to the last 2 major cards we have to reveal. So yeah, that'll be for this video. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll be back probably tomorrow with the 4th round as expected. So yeah, bye-bye.